You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Analese.
This is Rob.
And we are your nerd best friends.
Nerdwatching the 70s continues with books, comics, music, and more pop culture from the decade of disco.
This is Nerd Best Friends, where we celebrate the conversations you're already having or wish you were. We're your nerdy companions on a quest through cosplay, comics, D&D, pop culture chaos, and all things wonderfully weird. If you're loving the ride, hit subscribe, follow, or share this episode with your fellow nerds, because the algorithm needs a little nudge from the nerd herd. Let's make Season 5 our nerdiest adventure yet. This is episode 75, season 5. That's a lot of fives. Rob, how you doing today?
5 by 5, Analese. How are you?
Hey, look at that Buffy reference. You did it. We did it, fam. Rob made a Buffy reference unsolicited. Amazing.
That's like an interesting reference too, because it's supposedly like a military thing, but nobody can really tell the origin. Like I think when we were doing the Buffy episode a couple years ago, I was like, what does that mean? Did it come by something? And it was like, oh, there was like some war movie where it was also referenced. Like somebody was like, you're coming in 5 by 5. It's not a real thing in the military. Like nobody actually says it. I don't know. But anyway, there you go. It could be a Buffy reference for this show.
So specifically unique that no one even uses it now. You know that who that is and what character and what show if you say 5 by 5.
Unless there's somebody out there who knows better, was in the military or uses walkie-talkies and wants to let us know what 5 by 5 means. When I did a little bit of research, it was like, this might be a thing, but really it's only from TV.
Oh my gosh, what if I changed the radio communication procedure at my school that instead of copy, they say 5 by 5? Oh, this could be a thing. I think most of the staff says copy when they've understood.
Like to acknowledge something. Yeah. I think 5 by 5 is supposed to be like loud and clear. It's the answer to like...
What's the clear code? Obviously, as a principal, I don't use the radio as much as the rest of my staff.
I've never had a job where I used a walkie-talkie.
We're 5 by 5. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, I guess you can do that.
We are here today for the second part of our nerd watching. We learned very early on, season 1, when we talked for like 4 hours about nerd watching the 80s, that we should probably make these 2-part episodes. That's what we've done every season since. Here we are talking more 70s.
And this is the deep one. This is not the like, oh, what TV shows were you watching on syndication and like what movies? This is like the deep, like comic book novels kind of thing.
And we're getting into pop culture and music. And I think you're right. This is deep dive into the 70s versus the very forward facing first episode. Before we get to any of that, we got some nerd mail.
Nerd mail.
A couple episodes ago, we had an episode about The State, the MTV sketch comedy show. And since then, we've had some listeners correct us a little bit, or at least give us some information on where to find some things. So the first thing is, The State is actually available on streaming, but I don't think either of us have Paramount Plus.
Right. I figured that out quickly after we recorded the episode as well. Like, wait a minute. I probably could have signed up for a free week of Paramount Plus and watched a bunch of this.
Right.
But like you said, the music would be all jacked up.
Correct. It's still not the original music. And from my understanding, that's still the same thing of people not either doing the work or paying up front for the rights to all these songs that were originally behind as background music to some of their more famous sketches. Now, the one thing I think both of us like really missed out on and skipped accidentally was also going to their website directly. And I do remember this a couple of years ago, the entire cast, The State.
They have a website?
Their website. They have their own website, right? So
interesting.
So I think that was a miss by both of us because on their website, well, I'll talk about that in a second. I'll talk about what I found on it. But one of our listeners just said you should check out their website. And I had forgotten about this, but 2 years ago, the all 11 members did a reunion tour where they did some live skits in front of audiences, very limited locations, limited amount of time. I know I remember texting you the schedule and we couldn't make it work either down there by LA or up here in San Francisco. We couldn't make it work. The dates they had it were really odd for both of us, management, educators, all that good stuff. So around that time, it looks like they put this website together. On that website, they had merch. It's all shown as sold out, and they sold it like a couple of years ago. So I think they just had a limited quantity when they were doing that tour and sold it.
Interesting. So what that tells me is they retained the rights to that property, because I would just assume
their logo and some of the logos from their
I would
skits.
assume it was like an MTV show, and it's not going to be on the MTV website because they don't care. But very interesting.
Apparently not. Or they just created it.
Stuff, then that's
they might have just created it to sell merch other than their logo. They had a shirt with that as their logo.
But if they're doing tours, then that says to me like, oh, that's their improv comedy group and they retain the rights to it, and good for them.
Yeah. Whether or not they were doing the old skits, I don't know. I didn't see it, and there aren't many clips of it about, but they had sold out shows for that very short tour, which was cool to see. Also on their website, they have some of the skits in their original form. So I was spamming our Nerd Best Friends text group last night once I learned this, because the Barry Levon sketch is right there with the Marvin Gaye music in the background, and it is perfection.
Beautiful. It was so good.
It's so good. It is so much better with that music in the background versus the fake music they created to put behind it in the DVD release or the streaming release.
And I hadn't seen it in quite a while, and it's just so funny. God, it's laugh out loud when he's like, do you know what I have here? That's a box of pudding. And he just comes in for the screen like, what does it say? I'm desperate. What does it say?
I forget all the time about the moment where Thomas Lennon is going, I'm going to go whisper some sweet nothing to this pudding. And then Michael Ian Black's like, I'm going to go over here and mind my own. And he's just off to the side plugging his ears and like gyrating his hips. It's so ridiculous. And we'll have Dr. Intern Joan link these on our show notes for this show. But also they have in its original form what you also had described having a hard time finding, which was Porcupine Racetrack in its original form.
God, made my heart sing to see the original Porcupine Racetrack.
So there's lots of good stuff. And then I just went down the rabbit hole, because once I started looking for those, all of a sudden, here's this sketch. Let me tell you the one I can't find. And I have to go, I think, to see the season 4 disc. But I remember you and I quoting endlessly a sketch about an overly stereotypical Italian group of friends hanging out like in a garage or something, talking about going to the zoo to walk.
Yes, to watch
the monkeys do it, or the penguins. I think it was both of them in that skit, which like is funny, but.
No, the penguins don't do it. They were genetically engineered like the Incredible Hulk.
Just like the Incredible Hulk. Yes, you're totally right. And I can find Reddit threads of people talking about the skit, but I can't seem to find evidence that it actually existed.
That is mind-blowing.
Right?
It definitely exists.
I didn't finish the entire series. I know we watched it. I know I had it like on VHS. I know you came over and we watched it on repeat, just pressing rewind over the 2-minute sketch over and over and over. So I'm going to find it. But super thankful to the listeners that sent us this stuff. We clearly just went off of our memories and love for the show than doing like deep research. So that's on us. But Paramount Plus, if you have it,
the fun of it, right? Is the listener engagement.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, I remember that and loved it too. And then they have their memories of it and stuff. Like, that's exactly what we were hoping for. So awesome. Keep writing it about the state.
Okay, Rob, let's nerd watch the set.
Boy.
And I guess this is kind of a cheat side of the nerd watching, because you don't really watch books and comic books, but you know what, whatever, we're still nerd watching. We're pop culturing. Shut up about it. All right, let's start with books. And I'll start real quick. I know my list is longer, but I really intend to just kind of group them together and not really talk really deeply about them.
Perfect.
Some of them were just a surprise by me. But I'm going to start with, I think the most obvious thing that I could say, anyone who is a listener or knows me, that the 70s is when Stephen King is first released as an author, or at least novels, because he did sell short stories for men's magazines prior to this. But Carrie is...
Because I think of Stephen King as like an 80s thing, but he would have had to have been writing the books in the 70s so that they could gain popularity and then be mainstream.
Right. And the 60s as an English teacher, right?
Oh, wow.
So
Dude, he's
as
old.
an English teacher, not making very much money. He was a high school English teacher. Was his first job, like out of college. And, you know, they're not making him very much money. They made even less back then. And so to make money on the side as his wife Tabitha got pregnant and stuff was to take short stories and write them in these short pieces over the course of months. So like a men's magazine, Men's Health or something would buy like a 5 short series. And that's kind of what he went back to when he wrote The Green Mile. These little bits that would basically be published weekly in these magazines. And then Carrie's, he gets his book deal, and Carrie is released in 1974. Thus starts the Stephen King era. And of course, I have to mention this, we're going to talk about books in the 70s. This is also the point in time where he's got some early novels that he wrote. And once he had a couple of blockbusters in the late 70s, he starts releasing some of these earlier novels under the name Richard Bachman. So this is that same era.
Side note, Tabitha is not one you hear very often anymore.
It is not.
What a great name.
Tabitha King. Yeah.
Huh. What do you short for Tabitha? You can call somebody Tabby, would you?
You could say Tabby.
Is
Abby?
it Beth? Do people named Tabitha, would they go by Beth?
I don't know that I've ever met someone named Tabitha to know what they would go by. Probably just Tabitha. Abby?
Oh, maybe Abby.
Tabitha? Beth? I don't know that I'd get Beth from Tabitha, but how do you get Dick from Richard? So
I mean, Tabitha and Beth seem like they go closer than Dick and Richard, since Beth is in the name.
Tabitha, I guess.
Hey, listeners named Tabitha?
Tabitha.
Listeners named Tabitha, write in.
Tell us. Or if you had a grandma named Tabitha.
Wow.
Did she go by Tabitha?
Well, that nice
it's
person.
It's an old name, right?
That nice person who was going to write it isn't going to write in now. Yeah, you get a grandma name.
Well, I'd be interested. Are you named after like an elder in your family? Like, I'd be interested because this is not a common name at all, especially now. I mean, now if it's Tabitha, it's like Thabith.
Did they name the baby on Bewitched Tabitha?
Well, we're going to have to deep dive that one. Bewitched Tabitha. Wasn't her name Tabitha?
No, her name was... Name? Wait, was her name Tabitha?
Wait, we're going to have to
What's
IMDb
Bewitched's
this.
Name?
I think if I knew how to spell, it would... Okay.
Like, I can hear... it's like right there in my mind. My mind just needs to break through. Like, I can hear Dick York yelling her name, but it won't form in my mind.
Tabitha. Tabitha is the daughter. You know, that was a good call. Yeah.
Well, what's her name?
So, Samantha.
Samantha, of course.
She's Samantha. And the husband is Darren. The mother-in-law is Endora. That is a very witchy name, Endora. And then the daughter is Tabitha. Good call. Look at that. Coming from
Tabitha.
Coming from the annals of your brain.
It was trying real hard, but that hamster just couldn't run on the wheel fast enough.
All right, so Stephen King era begins with Carrie, 1974. Bachman books like The Long Walk, The Running Man, and Rage are a thing in the 70s. What do you have for books?
You know, I did notice on your book you had on your list that I'll steal is The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
I've actually read that book.
No idea it was from the 70s. None whatsoever.
I loved it. I think I read it either 8th grade or freshman year. I was like, what? This cool movie that I love has a book? And I read it, and I remember right away, if you remember from the movie, they start on the ship where they had kidnapped the princess, and there's the screaming eels, right? That they rescue her from and stuff. In the book, it's just sharks. So that was...
It's not a very good fantasy book then.
It's so different. But the other thing that I liked about it was it was full of swears. You know how in the movie, there's one swear and it comes at the end and it's like a big punch. This one, everybody just swear the whole time. Interesting.
73. It was on my list because I was shocked that it was that old. The movie comes out more than 10 years after that.
Sure. I don't know that that's necessarily odd for books. They take a little while to gain popularity to somebody be like, oh, have you read that Princess Bride book? I have. Really? Have you? Yeah, I have too. Oh, maybe this is popular than we thought.
I mean, we think that. And then we talked last episode because I mentioned Carrie the movie came out a year after that novel came out. It's real interesting. But in that same surprise, I'm just going to mention real quick, The Neverending Story came out in 1979. Also did not know that was a book from the 70s. I Know What You Did Last Summer, 1973.
Really?
No idea there was even a book. You know what I've done now that I found this is I'm looking for that book to borrow and read. Yeah, no idea that story. And it is this, New Haven, shipside town where these murders happen. It's the dude with the hook and yeah, no idea. 1973.
Well,
that movie didn't come out for
that?
20 years.
Learning stuff.
You got other books?
I've got two, and it's kind of interesting because it is Nerdwatching the 70s. So these are two books that I know of or went back and read because of the movies that I saw. And the first is Watership Down. That's the one about the rabbits.
Yes. Yeah.
And remember that old animated movie about the rabbits from Watership Down?
Yes.
So I remember watching that and then going back and reading it. The other one that I really know about just from the movie was Interview with a Vampire.
Amazing book.
Have you read the book?
I've audio listened to the book.
Okay, very cool.
Audio read?
Yeah, I think it's very cool. I think it's because it's written in like that interview style, right? It's
Yes.
not a narrative, right? Which is very
Right.
cool because that's how Dracula was written, as like a piece together of different people's journals and newspaper articles and stuff like that. So yeah, those two were things that I was like, I watched those movies and it led me to go read the book, and they're on the 70s list. I'm like, oh yeah, Watership Down though, the rabbits. Although I'm getting confused in my head as I was thinking about the movie. I was like, wait a minute, there was Watership Down with the rabbits who have to like leave and find their new home. But there was also The Secrets of Nim about the rats who break out of the science facility and build it. But that's a different whole thing. But the animation style was the same, and it kind of mixes for me.
They're so old that they're mixing in your brain which one was which.
Exactly.
It's funny. So Interview with the Vampire and Dracula, both written in that format of journal entries and interviews and this, that, and the other. So was Carrie. Carrie is exactly that as well. So Carrie is not a novel from front to back. It hints that something really bad has happened, and you get little bits and pieces of it as you look, like this person's account, this court document, this interview, this newspaper article. Like they're all that's all the same. That's super interesting.
That is very cool. I think it's it's like, in movies, you have like the found footage movies. It's like the precursor to that. It's the found manuscript genre or whatever they might call it. I don't know.
Someone piecing together a story and how, what I like about that most is how it unfolds the plot to you. Right? Because you kind of know something's going on. You don't quite know. Like someone who's reading Carrie now has likely knows a little bit of the lore and knows what's going to happen, but still reading it unfold is terrifying.
I think that's
in
really
a really
cool.
Good way.
What I like about the genre is if you know what happens, it makes it even better the second time around. It's like the anti-spoiler. Like if you know how it is, then all of a sudden you start picking up all the little clues along the way.
Yes. And I will recommend Sissy Spacek narrating Carrie if you are an audiobook listener. I recommend it. I also this is just real quick. I want to mention something we all grew up reading, which is Shel Silverstein, and Where the Sidewalk Ends comes out in the 70s. So his first book of little novels for kids. I want to mention some very famous horror thriller genre things that were then created into movies or part of important pop culture. And one of them is Flowers in the Attic, which I did not know. I thought that was an 80s book. It's an 80s movie and was very popular in the 80s, but it was actually released in the 70s.
I think I had to read that for school.
I doubt it.
Never mind then. Flowers for Algernon is the one I read in school.
There you go. I would be very surprised if you read a book about babies born from incest and mom poisoning them at her parents' wish. It's not.
Jeez Louises, Analese, what are these books you're reading?
Well, see, the thing is, my mom was a reader. I mean, still is a reader, but in her younger age would have a pile of novels all the time. And this was one that I picked up and started reading. She's like, you shouldn't read that. I'm like, well, I'm already almost finished. And then when the movie came out, I wasn't supposed to watch the movie. So at some point, when I got a little older, I watched the movie.
So I did. Because that's how it worked. Because that's how it worked in the 80s and 90s. There was this like forbidden fruit of movies and magazines and stuff you weren't allowed to look at. So of course they became the most exciting ones you wanted to look at.
Exactly. And then I'll just mention Helter Skelter, which is written by the gentleman who prosecuted Charles Manson and the Manson family. So his insights on how all of that came about and the evidence that they found, that came out in 1974. I thought that was an older book too, because that was just happening, but excellent book to have been written so close to the events themselves. But it's a really good book if you like reading true crime. That's what I have for books.
That moves us on to comic books.
Comic books. And I think this is where we have a reversal of fortunes, where you have a lot more to say than I do. I will just do mine real quick if you don't mind.
Well, you've got a great list of characters here.
So here's what surprised me. If you want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go for it.
Okay. Everything on my side of the dock is all one because I had no idea this was a thing. So what I learned when I started researching for this episode is, have I even read comics from the 70s? I don't know. And then I found out that Marvel had an entire horror line in the 70s. I had no idea. I've never read any of them, but I've heard of a lot of them. But they had a whole list of characters, of weekly comics based off of horror genre characters. The Tomb of Dracula, The Man-Thing, Ghost Rider, The Living Vampire, Werewolf by Night, which is kind of a funny thing because they're not werewolves by day, but okay, I'll let you have that, Marvel. Son of Satan, Moon Knight, and Doctor Strange. These were some of many reoccurring characters Marvel had in the 70s under this horror wing
Yes, and we've seen recently some of those because they were always kind of the obscure ones, right? Because they were like the Marvel horror comics. It wasn't the flashy Spider-Man and Captain America and that kind of thing. But they have been making this resurgence. So Doctor Strange put that dude in the Avengers, and that's awesome. And they've been doing great stuff with Doctor Strange forever. My favorite Doctor Strange is him like literally fighting cosmic horrors, flying around, zapping them with magic and chopping them with a battle axe. It's awesome.
Yes.
Moon Knight got its own series on Disney Plus, which was incredible. Love it.
Moon Knight was really good.
If you kind of skip that one because you're like, man, who's Moon Knight? It's real good and fun.
It's really good.
Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night, they did it was like a Halloween special that Disney Plus did with Werewolf by Night. It's in black and white. There's 2 versions now. So the first time they released it was in black and white, which is awesome because it totally reads like an old black and white horror movie. And it's got the werewolf. It's got, was it Swamp Thing or Man Thing?
Probably Swamp Thing.
I can't remember which one is Marvel and which one is DC. They both came out at the same time in both properties. One is Man Thing and one is Swamp Thing because like all those artists and dudes just like lived in the same building in New York and went to work and like were cross-pollinating.
Stealing each other's ideas. Yeah.
Totally. So they came out at the same time. I think it's Swamp Thing. No, I think it's, oh my gosh. I hate when this happens. We're supposed to be a nerd podcast, and then I get on air and I get nervous.
When you're so nerdy that you don't remember Swamp Thing versus Man Thing. I mean, this is a pretty deep dive, Rob.
No, everybody had. I
don't know which one it is.
Giant-sized Man Thing. It's hilarious.
I'm still going to say Werewolf by Night is a weird choice for a title. It's like Werewolf by Full Moon.
That's what we were talking about. So Werewolf by Night, the first year it came out was in black and white, and then they re-released it the next year on Halloween in Technicolor. So it has that kind of like old school 70s coloring added to it. Funny. And it's great. I love it. Very cool. Very, very cool.
You know what? It's the Man Thing because it's right here on my list.
Well, but Swamp Thing is on my list. Both came out in the 70s.
Look
but Man Thing would, because this is a Marvel
Under
list.
A Marvel. Yes. That was my Marvel list. It's right there in front of you. Let's talk about your comics because that's all I had.
Analese.
I put this on here because there wasn't much else that I saw in my research of like, oh yeah, I've read that under my brand of I love horror and true crime and gruesome things. Again, shocked to find out that Marvel had this whole horror line. Like, I know these characters, but I didn't know it was like Marvel horror or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah. Super fun. Then there's a whole background to those comics, specifically the horror line and how they connect to the Comics Code Authority and all the stuff they were doing, like the Hays Code in Kansas. There's a lot of fun comics history around the Marvel horror line. On my list, first thing I have is, of course, something that has steered this character for decades and is referenced in every iteration, the death of Gwen Stacy. So, Amazing Spider-Man number 121-22, 1973. This is the one where, of course, there's the love triangle happening because comics were all about like drama and soap opera stuff in the 70s. There's Peter Parker, there's Gwen Stacy, there's Betty What's-Her-Face, there's the other lady,
Veronica and Jughead.
There's Veronica, there's Jughead, the whole thing. They're all mixed up there together. And the Green Goblin kidnaps Gwen Stacy and he's got her up on the bridge and are you going to save the bridge? Or are you going to save this person? I can do both. I can do it. Gwen Stacy falls from the bridge. Spider-Man throws his web out there, catches her by the ankle, pulls her up to safety and snap, broke her neck. And she dies.
Gosh.
And that steers that character and that story forever. And anytime you're seeing a modern take or like a revamp or a relaunch or a boot launch of Spider-Man, you see Gwen Stacy there, you know this is not going to end well for either of them.
And I still have not seen the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, but that's something that happens
absolutely, yes,
in those movies as well, and that drives
and that movie is particularly, it just really yanks you around because there's like multiple scenes of her falling and him catching her. She keeps falling, like it's a bit that they're
like
doing.
Like a running gag almost?
She keeps falling and he keeps catching her. You're like, is this gonna be the one? And it's like, nope. And she's just like bouncing around like a freaking ping pong ball until she finally died. Interesting choice.
Poor Emma Stone. Poor Emma Stone.
Exactly. They're like, we're just gonna yank Emma Stone like a yo-yo around this entire scene until we snap her in half.
In this scene, you're falling.
Yep. And it's really just her on a green screen going,
all right, what else do you have?
Giant size X-Men #1. This was the turning point in the X-Men where they got the fancy costumes, and the roster just exploded with different characters, which is one of the things X-Men is known for, is like, there's a million of them out there. That's one of the things, is like, Professor X is finding the mutants all over and bringing them to the school and trying to help them and things. It is a classic nerd trivia question to be like, name all the characters on the cover of Giant Size X-Men #1. So that was that turning point for them. The Infinity Saga was in 1973.
Okay, wait, let me pause you before you go on to Infinity Saga.
Sure.
Is it called Giant Size X-Men because of how many characters are in it, or because they're like larger than life?
Because of the page count. You were getting, for your same 99 cents, you're getting like 10 extra pages. This book is, they also had those, back then they would have prestige formats where the book would be actually larger. I have a couple, my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle collection is in like that prestige format where they're still paperback, but instead of like being stapled, they have, glue on the spine because they're a little thicker and they're a little bit bigger, which is now very annoying because they don't fit in your long boxes.
Giant size because the size of a comic book, not
because of
having
the size
anything to do with the, all right, thank you.
I think there was probably like, that was the idea, was there would be, there's a double entendre there. It's this story is so big. We had to make the pages bigger.
There are so many characters. We needed more of them.
Yes. If you like your Avenger movies and you like your Thanos and your Infinity Stones and stuff, that was a 70s storyline. Very silly.
Wow.
One point, Thanos jumps in the Thanos copter, which is a yellow like news chopper that says Thanos on the back. It's a lot different from humble beginnings.
That sounds inconspicuous, Thanos.
It's real bad. Captain Marvel debuted in the 70s.
Yeah.
Punisher debuted, first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 129, 1974 was The Punisher. We got Swamp Thing, 1971. And
versus Marvel's Man Thing.
Yes, okay, Swamp Thing and Man Thing. So you could get a giant, again, you got your giant size X-Men #1, you could have it next to your shelf of giant size Man Thing. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was Speedy is a junkie. Okay. So there was, in reaction to the Comic Code Authority, which if you look at the old comic books, they had like a little badge under the number that was like, this book approved by the Comic Code Authority, meaning it was okay, safe for kids. It's a lot of the same kind of stuff that we talk about right now, where it's like, hey, this is a comic book. It's got bright colors. It's got drawings of, heroes and stuff on it. It looks like it's for kids. So you have to put a warning label on it, or in this case, they put a label on it that said, this one passes, the test, right? So you think about tobacco, alcohol, right? They have to have a label that says, this is not for kids. Well, this case, it was, this is for kids. But Stan Lee and his friends, they wanted to tell bigger, more mature stories about the drama that was happening in real life. So you would get the Marvel horror line, which was not approved by the Comic Code Authority.
Can imagine not, yeah.
And you got one of my favorite covers, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, 1972. This DC was like, forget this Comic Code Authority. We're going to tell some real stories. And on this story, it's got Speedy, which is like a Green Arrow sidekick, right? Like every hero's got a kid's sidekick or whatever.
Okay, sure.
And he's there on the cover with his arm all sticking out and like veins and green arrows in the background. And he's got the balloon and it's all spiky. And it's like, Speedy is a junkie? ? Exclamation point, question mark. And it was like, we're going to tell a story about drugs, kids.
On this very special issue.
Yes,
the Green Arrow.
Exactly right. On this very special issue of Green Lantern and the Green Arrow, Speedy's on drugs. What are we going to do, fam?
Is he on speed?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
His name's
Methamphetamines?
Amphetamines? I believe he was like injecting heroin directly into his veins.
God. Okay, yes, that's a very 70s thing, first of all. And second of all, I mean, I guess good for that cover because it's telling you right away, this ain't for kids, mom and dad.
Exactly right. You were looking for the little logo on the thing. No, don't worry about it.
Not only did you not get that, you got a big old, you imagine a kid like plopping that down. Mom, buy this read. No.
But it's one of those things where it's like, look at your Green Lantern. You've got all the imagination powers of the space police, but you can't, what are you going to do against the war on drugs?
Poor Speedy.
Poor Speedy. I mean, Speedy was living it up in the doing drugs in the 70s. Come on. They were safe. There was free love.
He was going amazing. To Studio 54 is what Speedy was doing.
Oh my gosh.
All right. You have any other comic books about drugs?
Well,
Drugs? Who do you think I am, Bob Dylan?
Bob Dylan?
Do you even know, Doug, do you even know who Bob Dylan is?
I know he died of drugs.
Here we go again. We quoted this in the episode. We're quoting it again. Go watch The State. And that was in the 90s. So let's go back to the 70s.
Boy.
And let's talk about pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go first this time, Rob?
Obviously, late 70s, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Analese. Dungeons and Dragons came out in the 70s.
You mean the dragon in the room?
Yeah, no, Dungeons and Dragons was created in the 70s and published. It was a evolution of a game that Gary Gygax and his friends had made called Chainmail, which was actually like a miniature war game or like miniature skirmish game like we still play today. Back then, that was based on historicals. Historicals, it seems like, have been a thing since forever, which is like making your little diorama of like famous battles from World War I or World War II or the Civil War or whatever it might. Forever and ever, dudes have had the hobby of painting up little soldiers and setting them up on battlefields. And what made Chainmail a little different was it was this fantasy setting where it had the fantasy tropes of like, oh, there were elves and dwarves and wizards. And so we're bringing this thing in. That was called Chainmail. And then, then it was the idea of like, well, what if it wasn't like all of these dudes? What if you played a character? And it would, all that kind of stuff that you know about what Dungeons and Dragons is. Late 70s, and they started publishing, especially in the early 80s with their box sets and things. And Dungeons and Dragons.
And
the
history
70s.
50 years later. It'd be 74, right? Because the 2024 was the 50-year anniversary?
That is...
I think...
What year are we in now?
5.
Okay, then yeah, 1974.
So 74. I know you got that trivia question right when we did trivia back over in the summer, but...
Right.
Now
the real problem is I don't know what year we're in right now because every time I write the year... Because it's the education system. Like, what year is it? It's 25/26.
Yeah, it's 25/26.
So, like, I don't know.
Which side of that are we on?
It's one of those. Yeah. Are we there yet?
Good times. Yeah,
I said I had to mention the fashion. Bell bottoms, tie-dye, platform shoes. You can very easily say, like, oh, this is a movie from the 70s by the very iconic big collars,
Yes.
The way the cars looked. And that kind of tells you what side of the 70s you're on, because the cars are either like gigantic muscle cars or they're tiny, like after the gas crisis, fuel efficient cars of like the early 80s.
Yes. And I think they were called bell bottoms at the time, but eventually like flare pants is basically the idea, where they're super skinny cut and then flare out at the bottom. Like, what's his face? Kendrick Lamar wore flare jeans and
now
like
they call
brought
them
them back
Kendricks.
It's so wild. Those are bell bottoms, is what they are.
They're just bell bottoms.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say that the other day. They're like, "Oh, I'm wearing my Kendricks." I'm like, "Oh, but
your what's? Your what's?" Yeah.
I have saved this since last episode. I don't think I put it in the movie section. Well, maybe I did, but either way, the greatest thing that happened in the 70s, the most influential thing on my life for sure, was the Muppets.
Yes.
Jim Henson, Frank Oz, Muppets, The Muppet Show, leading to The Muppet Movie. Absolutely just avant-garde. Such a weird, nerdy thing, unlike anything else. Absolutely creative, pushing the limits of what people could do with puppetry, with comedy, with taking the format of the late night show or the interview show and just turning it on its ears, bringing this idea, this humanization of celebrities while they have to like stand there and talk to people under a desk moving puppets. Like, it's just absolutely cool. The music was absolutely insane. All the shows had to have a musical number, and they knocked it out of the park almost every time. In my opinion, the greatest thing that ever came out of the 70s was the Muppets.
I mean, you definitely went for it last episode too, but that's okay. Let your rant on it again because it's that important to you. But here's a question I have. Why are there no Muppet? Can we mix Muppets and D&D?
You can't.
RPG.
The difficulty that the Muppets have is because they're their own genre, they don't cross over very well. So for instance, there's like, you can do the Muppet Babies, which was a Muppet cartoon, but like, that's not that cool because it's not live action practical Muppets. It's animation. You could, but it would just be you and your friends trying to imitate Jim Henson's voice around the table. it's not like, because you're not seeing it. It doesn't.
Well, one thing we talked about last episode was that Jim Henson, they created this cast of characters who haven't changed in 50 years because they're strong, thorough characters. You don't need necessarily character growth in them, right? You know who they are. It would be really interesting to see a group of them somehow land in a D&D world. And how would Kermit react to
I see what you're saying.
Zombie? Yeah,
so you're not saying play D&D as Kermit and Fozzie. You're saying where's our short, or where's our, whatever on the Muppet Show where they're in with swords and armor and stuff.
No,
like
I'm
that.
saying like a one shot of putting a bunch of Muppet characters in some random, figuring out a way that they get some random thing, because Miss Piggy reacting to something in that fantasy land would be hilarious. Animal creating chaos as a barbarian would be hilarious. Like, I think there's something there that these characters are strong enough, even though you're not creating that character, that voice, that backstory. It still could be kind of fun to see how those characters, D&D storytelling, right? Once you get past the schematics of playing the game, all you're doing is sitting around and telling a story with friends. And once you can lean on that, then you could lean on anything.
What it makes
it's
me
interesting
think?
thought.
In the last 10 years, there's been this like explosion of Dungeons and Dragons actual plays, and people will set up put tons of money in building sets and tables and stuff so they can stream these games. If only that had existed in the late 70s, early 80s, and you could have grabbed those voice actors and puppeteers and put them around the table. Imagine like Jim Henson, Frank Oz, the Gonzo guy, like all sitting around.
They might have done it. They might have all been,
maybe
smoking some weed and playing D&D around the table with their characters. Like,
if
I
it was
would not
as
be surprised.
popular as it is today, back then, that absolutely would have happened.
I'm going to say it happened. Thank you, Jim Henson. On my end, pop culture, I think I like to talk about in the nerd watching the technology that was up and coming or available then. So the 70s was when we get the Apple I computer, we now know as MacBooks, and all the Apple devices started with the Apple I computer in 1976. The Apple II, the Apple II computer, the Mac computer came out in 79. And I think it was the Apple III that we had in my household because my dad.
Wow.
I don't know if you know this, Rob, but my dad used to go by auction. He'd go to car auctions that have been like repossessed
that makes sense,
or like towed and stuff.
That lines up exactly with what I know about your dad.
So he would sometimes have random, I think one of my first trumpets or clarinet was because it was in the trunk of one of these cars. So at some point he got a hold of like an Apple III. And that's the first computer we had in the house, not because we had money to buy it, but because it was like in someone's trunk that he would buy those cars. And
they wouldn't clean them out.
They're
just as is. Come to the lot
because they were like towed or someone was pulled over and arrested and no one can. All those rules that have to happen before they can auction off a vehicle. It sits there for X amount of time, like blah, blah, blah. My dad would get those and like empty them out and clean them up a little bit and fix them up a little bit. And he'd drive them to Mexico and sell them for cash. So that's how he used to get extra money. And that's how we got an Apple III. So that, and then the Atari was released in 1977. So you can't ignore Atari. It's the first home game console that was small enough to be picked up by a child and plugged into a television.
Yes.
And then the Sony Walkman comes out in 1979. Suddenly we have something besides 8-track players, gigantic cassettes, and something other than record players, which you can't take with you and be portable. So when they made cassette tapes, Sony figured out how to make that into the Sony Walkman. That is so iconic and started, I mean, you can thank the fact that we have iPhones or digital music players. That started with the idea of that you can take your music with you and have this battery powered thing with headphones and enjoy music whenever you want, which was not a thing before the Walkman came out.
So when you said Atari, I'm like picturing one in my mind, right? And what I remember is it had that very 70s thing where it was plastic made to look like wood.
Wood paneling.
Like a wood, like a wood trim on it. And so like that idea of like, oh, this is an electronic device, but it goes in your home. So it has to have wood on it.
It has to make it look like a home console. Yes.
Exactly. And like, I remember we had a TV like that forever because it was a giant TV and like a cabinet
encased in wood.
Back, but it was encased in plastic like wood.
Or actual wood from the 70s. And those televisions were like 300 pounds because of all the cabinetry around the television.
My gosh.
And the thing I remember about the Atari the most is that like that cord of the one stick controller, you had had to sit so close to the television because
Like an
that cord
arcade.
was like a foot and a half long, like an arcade. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. The Atari.
And then the Sony Walkman also, like, of course I could picture that, but like when the original one, did it come with the orange foam on the earphones?
I think so.
Because when I think of it, I think of the orange foam on the earphones.
I think that was the original one, yes.
So cool. I had one much later that was like a sport one, and it was like kind of chunky, and it was white and gray, and it would like clip on the thing because I think it was supposed to be water resistant.
Yeah, and then also I think they try to make it so that if you dropped it, it wouldn't, because if you remember, you would drop one, it would shatter in 1,000 pieces and you were just done. I think they made that sport one with a chunkier, with more thick plastic around it so that you could drop it and go, oops, my cassette's still playing.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, I used to sit around and make mixtapes, like actual mixed tapes to put
from
in your
the radio.
Walkman. From the radio. You're sitting there with your record and play button and your pause button. You're sitting with that pause button, just waiting for the DJ to stop talking, and then boom.
Yep.
Good times.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to have sat through that to now I just have to go bloop, bloop. There's the song I want. Crazy. Actually, we don't even have to touch anything. I can just ask one of my devices to play a song and it will find it for me and play it for me. Back to the 70s.
Change is constant. Okay, this I think was the most difficult one, not because I couldn't find anything, but because there was too much from the list.
Yes.
Our next category is music, and music from the 70s. I mean, some of the best music in world history, I think. It's just absolutely incredible. I love 70s music.
Yeah, I can go first. I think I'll start with another duh for me. If you know anything about me and what I'll call my brand of my side of Nerd Best Friends is the 70s is when Fleetwood Mac exploded. They were around in the 60s as a blues band in England. They were getting a small following there. They move over to the States and have a growing following, but they keep losing guitarists. It's a little bit, this is Spinal Tap kind of makes fun of this a little bit with them constantly losing their drummer, I think. No, not the drummer. Whoever they keep constantly losing. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but they keep losing their guitarist. And at some point, Mick Fleetwood, they're looking for another guitarist. They might have to fold their band because they're having this string of bad luck thanks to drugs and psychedelic things happening to their guitarist. The guitarist before they brought on Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, they land in LA. Dude goes hanging out with some people and never comes back because he joined a cult.
Perfect.
Yes. And so they're looking for a guitar,
70s.
like doesn't show up to the gig that night and they try to go
70s.
save him from the... Yes. Guitarist joins a cult. Sounds like it's a joke, but then Mick Fleetwood hears some of the Buckingham Nicks album, invites Lindsey and Stevie to Fleetwood Mac, and they explode with a more pop rock sound than the blues band that they were at their origins. 96 is when the White Album, self-titled Fleetwood Mac album, comes out. That's the one that's got Rhiannon and Landslide and puts them on the map. So for me, the 70s is Fleetwood Mac.
Interesting.
Do you want me to? I can say a few more.
Yeah, keep going.
Here's what we did. You filled this one out first, and yours are a bunch of bangers. But I'm like, you know what? I can still list more bangers. That's how, like, to your credit, what you said, how crazy the 70s was. But, you know.
So the next thing on your list that, like, jumps out at me is James Brown.
James Brown, right?
Unlike anything else, and still unlike anything else.
Right? I think the closest we can get to a James Brown is maybe Bruno Mars. Maybe. But
sure. But that's in, like, a lot of that is in the style of a James Brown.
Yes.
He's
100%.
He's the next person who's been able to do it really good and advance the art, I would say. But it's still James Brown, right? Yeah. Next, you have, what's the next one you want to talk about?
Next on my list is the Jackson 5. I think also you take a little bit of the James Brown and the Temptations and this emerging African-American influence in music, and then you get this little kid group to come in and kind of meld that together and show the power of having a younger audience. Because I don't know that a lot of studios and record companies believed that teenagers were a driving force to music. And the Jackson 5 kind of blows that out of the water too. It's not just about the adults who have the expendable money. It's about the teenager pulling on their adults sleeve saying, buy me this album. And the Jackson 5 really starts that.
And it starts
you have the Beatles, but...
kind of subgenre too, right? You have the Jackson 5 and then you have Menudo and you have the
and the
Partridge
Monkees.
Family.
Yes.
Well, I would say like the older, because they were adults, right? So you think like the Beatles spun out to the
right.
Monkees, spun out
right.
to, whatever. But like that kid group was also a thing.
Yes, you're right. You're right. When you're talking about like the age of the performers themselves. And then you turn it into like New Kids on the Block in the 80s and
right.
NSYNC and 98 Degrees and
were they all
that.
Teens when they started those?
Some of them were. Yeah, some of them were. New Kids on the Block were all teenagers, late teenagers, and then you had Joey McIntyre was like 2 or 3 years younger than he was like 15 when they started. 98 Degrees, maybe not. Maybe they were old. NSYNC for sure were teenagers, and then
I guess so, because you call them boy bands, not man bands.
Not man bands. And that was the thing about Menudo, right? Like once they hit 18, they were kicked out.
They're kicked out.
The next,
they had rotating cast.
Yeah.
Which is that how like K-pop works?
No, I just think they're very youthful.
Okay.
I don't think they're kicking people out. I don't know. I don't know enough about K-pop to know, but I don't think so. And then, a handful of years later, you have a high school drumline winning a gold medal about all those boy bands.
I mean, who'd have thought?
Genius. But yeah, so I have the Jackson 5. I also put Stevie Wonder because I do think it's important that it's a bit of a turning point in the 60s and 70s where in the 50s, some of the African-American musicians, their songs were being performed by white musicians taking, you know what I mean? Like they were the writers behind the scenes, but we get the 60s and 70s and now we start seeing more artists like
then the
James
record
Brown,
company would be like, well, we can't have this person sing it. We got to like make a shiny, America will want to buy
and
this.
And Motown changes that, right?
Yes.
Stevie Wonder's released, and that's why I had those folks on the list. I think no list in the 70s is complete without acknowledging Janis Joplin, who is just a trailblazing woman of rock and roll. She's a big influence to Stevie Nicks, who was in a band called the Fritz and opened for Janis Joplin, and that changed her like life view of what it's like to be a female rock and roller in a industry that's dominated by men. So Janis Joplin, just
unmistakable.
Music.
Like nobody sounds like Janis Joplin,
and still to this day nobody does.
Nope.
And that's a lot on my list. What do you got?
I kind of broke my list into like the big things that we got from the 70s.
Okay.
So the first one is arena bands. This idea of like these rock musicians that would have the light shows and the pyrotechnics and the drum set with 300 drums for some reason. You got your Boston, your Styx, your Kansas, your Journey, like all of those like 70s bands that had those big hits and just could sell out those giant shows.
Yes.
Just designed to do so. The other one I had was that music, like kind of that funk or groove music of the time.
Okay,
like it wasn't, so you had disco, which was very like I love instrumentations. I love bands that have not just guitar, bass, and drums, right? I want to see those horns, those saxophones, like that instrumentation. And so you got that in two ways in the 70s. You got that in disco for sure. There was like the brass and stuff in the instrumentation, but you also got that in this kind of like funk genre. And so like I go so much to early Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, Sly and the Family Stone, just that awesome 70s funk sound and the like super talented instrumentation.
Neither of us have Tower of Power on our list. Aren't they 70s as well?
I would think they'd have to.
And Chicago?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would fall into this.
This is what
I'm saying. It's so hard to remember all the things to put on the list. But like, yes, those people in my 70s playlist, it's going to be Earth, Wind and Fire. It's going to be Chicago. It's going to be Tower of Power. It's going to be Sly and the Family Stone. And then there's also this like Vietnam War reaction type music that happened in the 70s
like
as well.
Like some anti-establishment type.
That anti-establishment, like Creedence Clearwater, of course. Like you can't watch, that's another one of those tropes. Like how do you know it's the 70s? Because there's a helicopter flying over a jungle and they're playing and they're blasting Creedence Clearwater, right?
Yes.
So you had Creedence Clearwater, that kind of like, it's folk rock kind of genre, right? You got Creedence Clearwater, you got America, right? Ventura Highway, what a banger. And then that's also, again, one of my favorite musicians, which is funny. People make fun of me. It was like, I love Billy Joel. I think Billy Joel's great. And it was interesting because we listened to Billy Joel and my son really only knows Billy Joel as like this 30-year thing, right? Because if you go on Apple Music, it might play something for whenever. But the album, The Stranger from 1977 is still the best Billy Joel album ever made. And he listened to it the other day. I don't know how it came up, but we were talking about it. I think he was looking for something to sing. And he was like for an audition, and I was like, oh, you could do, and it was like supposed to be 70s something for whatever reason. I was like, oh, listen to The Stranger and see if there's any, shows you or tunes you want to grab from that. And he come back the next day. He's like, Dad, this album is incredible. I'm like, yes, it is. So that's there's so much good stuff from the 70s music. It is far and away. Like I do remember like being in high school in the 90s. Of course, I listened to a ton of these music, and like these alternative is probably something I listened to the most just because that was that phase of my life. But honestly, going through this list, trying to think of these bands and looking at it, I'm like, no, like definitively the 70s are my favorite musical time.
Yeah,
period.
I mean,
like this is it. The 70s were my favorite.
The fact that you were able to do categories, I think, is also something that starts to emerge in the 70s more than ever before. I mean, I put some on my list like David Bowie. David Bowie was gender bending and weird and something unheard of, but he produced and created such great music.
I should go back to some of that early stuff because I think because of that and because of like the hair and like the way the costuming was, like I think of Bowie as 80s, but maybe
definitely he becomes like,
I need to go back and see where those 70s origins came.
It's wild. And, of course you get your iconic, you've got the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, right, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. The list goes on and on and on.
Ozzy Osbourne, R.I.P. to
Ozzy.
Great one,
Ozzy,
but yeah,
just passed away.
Black Sabbath was again one of those things where it's like there's so many different genres in the 70s, and yet you could still find a way to be completely unique and be doing something avant-garde.
And I will tell you, the movie Almost Famous does a really great job of depicting what this music industry was like in the 70s. Cameron Crowe, who followed Black Sabbath and toured with Fleetwood Mac as a teenager to write for Rolling Stone magazine, and what was happening in the 70s for music to become more commercial or more commercialized. He calls that movie the love letter to the music industry in the 70s. So if you've never seen that movie, I highly recommend it because a lot of these folks are mentioned. If not, there's like a mini cameo of someone who kind of looks like them. Just really depicts how special music was in the 70s. And I know there's some we missed.
There has to be. Like, I mean, it goes forever. And that's what I love about it too. Like you were saying, how convenient music is these days. Like I can grab my phone, I can put in a playlist of like 4 songs from this list, and it'll just go forever on awesome 70s music and bands all day long for my Sunday barbecue or whatever it might be.
And Rob, that was Nerd Watching the 70s, part 1 and 2. Listeners, tell us what we missed. Podcast at nerdbestfriends.com or find us on social medias at nerdbestfriends and rail on us. What did we miss?
Oh my gosh, so many things. So, but you don't have to be mean. Just share your favorite things from the 70s.
No, nerd out and just nerd aggro. Tell us what we missed or agree with us.
All right, Analese, that takes care of the 70s. What is the nerdiest thing you did this week?
The nerdiest thing I did this week, I had been holding off, and I couldn't hold off anymore because I don't have I don't even know, it's not Showtime anymore. It might be Paramount Plus. I didn't have a Paramount. We talked earlier about Paramount Plus. I didn't have a Paramount Plus subscription, and I had a 7-day trial to catch Dexter Resurrection.
Oh, that's the way to do it.
I'm such a fan of the show Dexter and the books. I was really hesitant to watch this new version coming out. I was actually a little upset about it because they had Dexter New Blood, which was supposed to, that came out a couple of years ago. It was supposed to kind of tie in and really end the really bad seasons at the end of the original run of Dexter. It ends really horribly. And I think they tried to kind of...
Because of decisions, or horribly because like it went on too long because it was popular?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. The ending of the original run is people know that Dexter is a serial killer. His sister dies. He kidnaps the body, goes out into his boat in the middle of a hurricane, is left for dead. And then the very last scene is him sitting with like a beard and looking like a lumberjack in a big snowy area, just sitting in a cabin by himself. And that's how they end the series. What? It was so horrible. So
right,
horrible,
I'll take
so
your word
bad.
for it.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like everything they did those last 2 seasons it just moved so far away from what made the first 5 seasons or 6 seasons before that really iconic. And then they get this new blood where he's living as someone else. As far as anyone knows, Dexter Morgan is dead. And all these things happen. His son is alive and finds him. And it's a whole thing. And that series ends with his son shooting him and him being left bloodied in the snow because he's living in Alaska. So then you think, okay, Dexter's dead. It is over. And they start this one with him being rushed to the hospital and everything that comes out. And I was at first hesitant going, why are we doing this?
Thus
but,
the
oh my
resurrection.
Gosh. Yes, the resurrection is, and also it circles back to who he was before the show got wonky. And it is so good.
Okay.
And it takes place in New York, and it is so good, and I cannot believe how good it actually is. So I nerded out. I have a couple more days to finish the episodes that are up and then determine whether or not I want to cancel it and wait till the rest of the season's up. But I am thoroughly, thoroughly impressed with what they've done in Michael C. Hall. I mean, can't go wrong.
That's great. So did you get it done in your 7-day trial? Did you binge it all?
I have like 2 episodes left that I can watch before. I think I have to cancel it tomorrow.
You know, it's funny because I was thinking about that 7-day trial too, because there's so much Star Trek on Paramount Plus that I haven't watched. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder if this year I'll like get the flu or COVID and have to stay home and I could do a
7-day trial
and watch a bunch of Star Trek.
Gotta know when to pull that trigger.
Yep.
Okay, what about you, Rob? What's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
This is so nerdy, Analese. I'm so excited about the fact that I got new nippers. So I build a lot of these little plastic models.
I don't want to know what happened to your old nippers. Don't show me.
Oh, okay. It might violate our terms and conditions, but I'm going to show my nippers on
oh boy. Here we go. Live nippers, everybody.
So here we go. My old nippers.
Okay.
My new nippers. Look, they have a little spring. They got an adjustable nut. They're all... this is the nerdiest thing we've done ever. They're nerdy little nippers.
Who knew that nippers had nuts?
This one does. And it's adjustable. So you can like adjust the stop point.
You can adjust your nuts.
You can adjust your nut for your nippers. And so
wait, did your other nipples?
Wow.
That's happened. Did your other nippers break? Or did you just say, I'm tired of using subpar nippers?
So I was kind of under the impression for decades or more that all nippers were really the same. Yes, you can there's this gold standard of nippers called God hands that all of the like...
God hand nippers
are what like the Gundam real like model nerds use. And they're like $50 for these nippers. And I'm like, people are saying like, they're not worth $50. A nipper's a nipper, a nipper. If your nippers wear out, just go get another $6 pair at the Harbor Freight or whatever. And so I've just had, honestly, just so many nippers that were like cheap and free, and every 3D printer, like you order something and like, it'll come with little nippers to bust your filament out.
Nuts.
Yep. Known to nip your filament. So I was like, well, a nipper's a nipper, but these nippers suck. And I don't know if I just wore them out or, they got dull or they were never that good to begin with. So I'm like, I need new nippers. I'm going to like do some research and find like what are good recommended model nippers that aren't the God hands $50 ones. And so I found like a good like $20 pair. Steady is the brand. And so far it could just be that they're so much better than my crappy worn out free nippers, or they could be really good. I don't know. Either way, I'm like a modeling machine this weekend because I'm just like, I gotta keep cutting plastic. They're so good. These nippers are like, they cut like butter.
I think this is the nerdiest of all nerdy things you've ever talked about on the show.
Yeah, nailed it.
To anyone who's not on social media, you really need to get on social media to see Rob's nippers.
That's right. We're every week now. We don't do patron bonus episodes. Normally we put this kind of content behind the paywall, but Season 5, everyone could get a glimpse at Rob's nippers.
Yep, and that's what everyone has wanted for 5 seasons. So You
It's
got
like
your
those
wish
YouTube
listeners.
people. Tons of people have been asking me to do a video about, like, nobody's asked you to do anything, but that's how he gets started. So many of you have been
So
asking me
many
to do
people
a
have
video
written
about
in
my nippers.
asking Rob about his nippers, and he's been like, I don't want to nip slip on my podcast right now. I am not ready to talk about that. Got him. Rob is dying now. Rob is laughing.
My gosh, we had a nipper
But now
slip.
he's done the research. He's done the mid-range model of nippers versus the golden hand nippers, and now he's nipping away.
Someday when our podcast is super, like when we're just rolling in podcast money, we have
you won't have to buy them. They're going to send them to you.
We have 10,000 patron subscribers. I could get God hand nippers, but for now, I got my $20 nippers.
God Hand Company, send Rob some God
Never
hand
happen.
nippers.
It'll never happen.
Send them to him.
No way.
All right. Well, thanks for the recommendation for those that need nips.
You asked what the nerdiest thing I did this week was, and I provided.
You absolutely did. Thank you for that nipper show.
Analese has been waiting for over 30 years for this moment. The Long Walk is finally a movie, and we watched it so you don't have to. Or maybe you should. Tune in next time for our nerd movie review of the long-anticipated Stephen King adaptation. Was it worth the wait? Was it worth the walk? Waka waka. You'll have to find out by listening. Before you go, smash that follow or subscribe button. Drop us a 5-star rating if you're feeling the nerd love, and find us on social at NerdBestFriends, or email us at podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Help us grow the nerd herd and keep the geeky goodness rolling.
Hey, go drop us a rating so Rob can get more nippers. Thanks for nerd watching the 70s with us, nerds. Next week, The Long Walk, and oh my gosh, we're going to get into it.
Thanks for listening. Awesome. Now we have to decide, like, are we doing the 60s next year? We gotta, right? It's gonna be a little tougher. That one might be able to fit in one episode. And then the 50s one might be able to fit into a bonus episode.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. Because we are 2025 into 2026, it won't be till like season 10 that we can do nerd watching the 2020s. So You'll have to figure that out.